Hi there, this is Dana Arcuri from danaarcuri.com, and recently I had someone reach out to me and ask me if I experienced any temporary or permanent drug damage from the pharmaceutical medicine that I have had in the past, and they have watched multiple videos of mine where I share my horrendous and nightmare experience with Cymbalta, with Ativan, and with various drugs. And so nevertheless, I had to do a little thinking. I had to start looking at what was I experiencing before the drugs, what happened during the drugs, and then what actually occurred following the drugs. And when I look at the big picture, I had to really step back and examine and think back, because now we're going back many years, because this began with all these medications. It began after I was diagnosed with herniated and bulging discs in my low lumbar area back in 2006 and 2007, and it just continued. Like every year, my back just got worse and worse, and the damage just kept getting more severe as time went on. And then from there, I was diagnosed in 2008 with the fibromyalgia. And eventually in 2009, I started treatment with Cymbalta. And so the funny thing about Cymbalta is that the pharmaceutical company has a slogan, kind of like a little phrase for the drug Cymbalta, in which they say, Cymbalta helps. And that's actually the furthest from the truth as far as my experience, is that no, Cymbalta didn't help. Actually, it made me and my health much worse. Actually, it caused me long-term side effects. Actually, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, and I'm glad it's behind me, but I still believe that there's lingering damage. And so while I'm not a doctor, and I'm not claiming to be a doctor, and my medical disclaimer is that I'm not speaking for anyone other than my own personal story, and so I can't cure you, and I can't tell you what will work for you and what won't, and I can't tell you if your drugs did or didn't damage you. This is just my own personal story, and it's one that I'm thankful that I'm alive, and I'm thankful that I survived. But as I really examine the past 7 years of tapering Cymbalta and tapering Ativan, and actually just slowly, one by one, ditching every single drug, that I could see a lot of symptoms surface during the tapers. I mean, things just went absolutely haywire from the moment I began taking Cymbalta. And of course, if you want the full story, watch the video on my Cymbalta nightmare. If you want the story on the Ativan, zoom into any of the benzodiazepine videos, because there's plenty of stories I have about those drugs. Nevertheless, I wanted to share some of the damage that I believe that I experienced, and that it's still lingering even after 7 years. So here we go. The first one is severe insomnia. I personally noticed that I was having difficulty sleeping when I started taking these medicines. I noticed my sleep was no longer the same. When I was in the middle of the benzodiazepine taper, that one I could say it was just an absolute nightmare. I couldn't sleep. I was so wired out. I felt like my body, because I was going through these wicked withdrawals, I felt like my body was in a constant state of fight or flight. And I mean, talk about like your heart is racing 24/7. You live in fear. Like you feel like you're ready to jump out of your skin. I mean, it is a crazy, terrible experience. And yet that was part of my withdrawals, that it would come, it would go. You would feel like your hours of sleep were switched and upside down. So in the day when you should be awake, you would be sleeping, and at night when you should be sleeping, you'd be awake. So your hours get just tossed upside down. And this was during my taper of medication back in 2010 and 2011, where things just went out of control, just literally spun out of control. At the same time, I was having kidney stone attacks. I would go get different medical testing and blood work, and they would check the urine, and there were like red flags all over the place. I mean, they said that my body was making kidney stones, and that the only way your body can make kidney stones is if you have too much calcium in your body. Well, I stopped taking calcium supplements, literally stopped, because I didn't want anything adding to the mix of all the other junk going on in my life. That was just a mess. So I stopped calcium, which that's a whole other topic, and I actually believe that's a bunch of hogwash. But I did, just for the sake of shutting him up, because he tried to use the theory, oh, it's your calcium, it's causing you kidney stones. Fine, that's what he thought. I stopped the calcium, I still had kidney stones. I stopped the calcium, I still had bladder infections. I still had so many disabling symptoms. And it just went on and on. And then when I'm tapering Cymbalta in 2010 and tapering Ativan in 2011, and my body is just literally at war. It was at war with its own self. You know, really, that's what's going on. It's like your immune system is just attacking itself. And that's when just there was a complete meltdown. I had broken out in my mouth with over 30 oral ulcers, in which the doctor claimed, oh, it's just stress. No, it's not stress, okay? You know what? People don't break out with 30 painful, excruciating, raw, sore, inflamed ulcers in their mouth, in which it's stress. No, I don't buy it, okay? Common sense says, you know what? A lot of people have stress. Not everyone should have 30 painful ulcers in their mouth. So I started searching for answers. And one thing led to another, in which I was then coming to the conclusion that all of a sudden my body was sensitive to everything, including gluten, dairy, citric acid. I mean, there were so many foods and so many different ingredients, things that I used to eat and drink and take and consume my whole life. And all of a sudden, during the Cymbalta and Ativan taper, just like that, boom, suddenly my body goes haywire. I can no longer eat what I used to eat, and I can no longer ever again have any form of gluten, because I will be in so much severe pain, it's not even worth the time or trouble. And so I had to get to a place where I had to come to the acceptance that I can no longer have wheat, rye, oats, barley. Your whole life is changed. So you're already in a bad place. You're already going through withdrawals. You're already having panic attacks and depression, anxiety, kidney stone attacks, bladder infections. You can't sleep. You're up at night because you can't sleep, and then in the day you're sleeping. You can no longer work. Your life is turned upside down. This was my reality. And it, today I look at this and I think, wow, how can this be? But it makes really good sense when you really connect the dots. We think about the kidneys, and the kidneys flush pharmaceutical drugs out of the body. Okay, so you're flushing the body, okay? And what happens is all these drugs are passing through the kidneys. We can't think that our organs are just going to have no problem whatsoever with these harsh, toxic, poisonous drugs. And so the implication is you may have damage. You may not have damage. I'm only speaking for myself. I personally believe that, yes, I definitely did have damage. So the kidney stones, thank goodness the drugs are like totally out of my body. Thank goodness this is behind me. And that is a big part of my past. I believe, though, that the insomnia is something that will probably be something I'll struggle with the rest of my life. I guess it's permanent. I'm not going to say it's temporary. And the reason is it's been going on for so long. You figure after 7 years of having your sleep disturbed, of being in a fight or flight mode, of having these horrific sensitivities in which your body is now at war with its own self, and there's things that you used to eat and drink and now you can't. And now you can't even take any medicine at all, because now it's almost like my body has turned against medicine. And so I am grateful for that part. Actually, I don't want to take medicine. I don't want to take any pharmaceuticals. I'm so grateful to be free of these pharmaceutical drugs and just happy that this is behind me, but still concerned because I know the damage that I've endured, and I know that you have probably experienced also different signs and symptoms from your drugs. Other things that I believe happened to me were my hormones went haywire. I went through menopause really, really young. I mean, I'm talking super young. There's no explanation whatsoever. And I am definitely going to say I think the medication had a role in my menopause. Next is, when your body's in fight or flight, you have a lot of stress. And I really believe that this leads me to think about the trauma involved with drugs. See, some people take medication and they don't have any problems and they take it with ease, and maybe things just kind of work well for them. Maybe they get some form of relief, maybe they don't. But for me, I didn't get relief. I got a lot of headaches from it. I've got a lot of problems, a lot of horrific, hellish symptoms, just the whole unraveling of my health. And that it definitely did damage, the central nervous system, the neurotransmitters, the ability to sleep, the GABA, the organs in my body. I will never, ever be the same. And so I look at this with like a bittersweet kind of flavor to it, because really I am who I am today because of what happened to me. And this really was probably the biggest rock bottom moment of my life. And it was an experience that was so deadly. It was so tragic that, my kids could have lost their mother. My husband could be without his wife. I mean, it's only really by the grace of God that I'm even alive at this exact moment. So I'm 7 years free of these drugs, and yet I still have some lingering long-term damage. And so the insomnia still continues, and people could say, hey, just try melatonin. Been there, done that, didn't work. I've tried so many different natural products, and for those who know me, I am a huge believer of a clean diet, of natural supplementation, of essential oils and pure plant-based ingredients. I am a huge, huge advocate, and I do believe that many of the natural remedies have helped me greatly, and they were a big key to my healing, to regaining a larger portion of my health, and it's definitely placed me on the road to recovery. But I just know that for those who are wondering, hey, whatever happened to you, and the person who reached out saying, did you or did you not have damage, I'm going to leave it at, yes, I did have damage. Yes, I still believe my body is damaged. I believe that there are some permanent, long-term effects from Cymbalta and Ativan and all the other drugs that at one time I had been prescribed. And my motto is today that less is best, and that for every drug we could find a natural remedy that could actually work even better. That we don't have to take drugs, that there are times and moments when it may be crucial, especially if you had a heart attack, you're in the emergency room, it's crucial to get things situated and stabilized. But on the same token, we have to always keep in mind in the back of our head that anytime we do take a prescription, that we may experience negative symptoms, we may experience some form of damage, and that our organs and our body are not exempt from this damage. And so today, just do your own research, fully understand what you're taking before you take it. I mean, education's super powerful, and if you could find out before you start taking a prescription, find out what the possibilities are, you could weigh the consequences, weigh the pros, weigh the cons, and decide for yourself if you're willing or not willing to take the risk. If you'd like to follow me, feel free to do so at danaarcuri.com. Also share with me if you've ever had any drug damage, any serious side effects from medications. I'd love to hear your story. Thanks and have an awesome day.